Once again, unmuted. Good morning, everybody. Uh, Good morning, Ava, and thank you for being our moderator this morning. Welcome to our Sunday morning sitting group. And uh, my name is Trudy. I'm the founder of Insight LA, and still teaching 20 years later here. And we have a really small group this morning. Not sure why, but it's always nice to have a more intimate group where we can really connect with each other during the conversation part. And for anybody who is new to Inside LA, welcome. And this is this is how we sort of do our morning together. We meditate first, just calming, settling, opening our hearts and minds, and then have some teaching, and then some chance for dialogue and conversation with each other. So let me just get the bell is here. Wonderful. And I do a little bit of guidance during the meditation. And then mostly we sit together in the quiet, just letting ourselves watch, observe where the mind goes, where the thinking and the emotions and everything that comes up when we stop distracting ourselves and just begin to relax into being right here, present in this moment. What happens? What happens? Usually the heart kind of goes wild, the mind and heart. But if you've been meditating for a while, you trust, that it can calm down, and there's almost like a figure ground rotation or reversal where instead of the distraction being, front and center for us and taking us off into paragraphs and paragraphs of thinking and stories and about this and that and so forth, instead of that, that still can all go on, but the mindful awareness, the attentiveness becomes more prominent. Excuse me, let me turn off my notifications here. Okay. Instead of struggling to be attentive in the midst of this sort of wildness of the untamed mind, um, we begin to see that, oh, it's possible to sustain the attentiveness even in the midst of whatever wildness might be happening internally. So let's sit together this morning, and I'm going to ring the bell. I invite you to listen to the sound of the bell all the way to its vanishing point as a way to just begin to transition into that quiet space of meditation, which may not be quiet, may not be quiet at all, but we observe it in a spirit of quiet or calm. Like, okay, this is how it is right now. So, beginning by taking a deep breath in and releasing. And one more time. Deep breath in. And as you breathe out, relaxing the body. And again, breathing in and releasing any tension there may be as you breathe out. It's as though the breath sweeps the mind and heart, The breath sweeps the body. And just for now, sweeping away everything that came before this moment and everything that may follow. Just allowing the breath to breathe in its own natural rhythm. Opening to the sounds of life around you. And grounding with the sensations of the breath in the body, the feet on the floor or wherever they are, your hands in your lap, just being here with your whole body, your whole heart. And when you notice that, when mindful awareness notices that distraction is in the foreground, just shift your body back, maybe half an inch, maybe an inch, into this posture of receptivity, not leaning forward into the next moment, but just gently shifting back to receive this one. and sitting together, each one of us a silent witness, as though we're sitting on the banks of the stream of consciousness, just watching the various thoughts and feelings float by while we sit still. appreciating the aliveness of the breath, of the body, bringing a little tenderness or kindness to meet whatever experience is happening right now. And sometimes, if it seems like the mind or heart is in a tangle, it can help disentangle by gently dropping in this inquiry, just very gently: who am I? Or what is this? Not looking for an answer, just inquiring. Who is in a tangle? Who am I? So once again, welcome everybody to our Sunday morning sitting group. I'm speaking to you from Venice, California, the unceded region, land, LA region of the Tongva, sometimes called Keys, indigenous people who lived here for thousands of years before we got here. And now here we are. Thank you for turning on your cameras. You don't have to, but it's so nice to see your faces. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so we're either dreading or happily anticipating the holiday week and Thanksgiving, and being with either a chosen family or family of origin or extended family members, whatever it might be for you. And it's a time that brings up so many feelings for so many people. Either, I know for me, I miss family members who aren't here, especially my little brother who died in March. I miss, not that we would have Thanksgiving together. He lived in a dusty village in the Andes in southern Ecuador. But we would touch base and he would tell me what he was doing that day. And it's either missing people or, missing the people that you wish you'd had in your life but never did, or having to face the people you do have in your life and wish you didn't. It's the whole range of possible human experience. And how can our practice serve during this time, especially during the holidays? I mean, during any time, but especially during the holidays. And I feel like one of the things that we do when we come together here that's so beautiful is we really come together because we're craving that heart connection. And that's what can sustain the practice of meditation, but also sustain the mindfulness in everyday life when we really feel that this importance of authentic and pretty reliable and substantial and meaningful, heartful, we should say heartful, I think, instead of mindful, connection that we find when we practice together here or in any of your practice groups. And I feel like when we do that, we're in alignment with our hearts and with our deepest values, which maybe we're not all day long. Maybe we might say bratty things or experience feeling disconnected, but this is a place where we can all connect. And I am grateful for it. And I'm grateful for all of you. And even though some of you I remember from the days, it seems like, I don't know, the before times when we were all meeting in person. And some of you I've only met here as little Zoom squares, but I really feel the love and affection for each one of you, and the gratitude for your being here, because this path is about learning to live the life that we have, this very life that you have right now. And then when you love the life that you have, and hopefully that means appreciating yourself within it, it's so much easier to love others. And that's the other thing this path is about, is learning to love others. And earlier this week, my friend George Mumford was in town, and he came over for dinner, and he and I decided to make a little video reel for Instagram, just very spontaneously. And so, we put up the phone and came in here and did it. And it was funny because at the end, Jack had just come down from Northern California, but I didn't know he would, he came into the house while we were doing it. And then we were in the middle of I was in the middle of sort of commenting on George's teaching. And then I realized, oh, Jack's here. And it was just a funny moment. He walked in, he's like, who are you talking to? And we just burst out laughing. That was the end of the reel. But the teaching that he gave was beautiful. And I want to share it with you, just the essence of it. He said, and maybe some of you are following, I don't know if you're on social media, follow, because I have a lot of teachings on there. It's Trudy_Goodman. And he said, you meet what you mirror. It's all about the love. If you want kindness, you have to be kindness. If you want peace, you have to be peace. And we can do that. See, that's the key. I'm now commenting on George, that we can do that, that's what we're here to learn how to do. Because it sounds like be peace, be kindness. Well, it's challenging. You know, we had an evening to thank the major donors to Inside LA last night, and my daughter and her husband came, and afterwards she called me and she said, Mom, can I just say something bratty? And I'm like, of course you can say something bratty. And she had some comment about somebody, and I noticed my mind, I had some bratty thoughts too that I could have shared. You know, I just noticed my mind, but luckily it was time to come and teach all of you. So there was no time to delve into that. And I was grateful, because it's challenging to be kindness and to be peace when part of our minds just wants to gossip about the night before. Right? I mean, this is just our humanness, right? So he said, we can do that. And with the help of mindful awareness and the help of having other things to do, we can do this. And he said, if you do that, if you can be kindness, be love, be that, then you'll find that chances are it's going to get mirrored back to you. And in my life, I have really found that to be true. And it's challenging, because it's so tempting to blame other people for that which isn't going well. Or, you know, there's a teaching in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. They're called Lojong teachings, mind training slogans. And I think Pema Chodron wrote a whole book of them, and Norman Fisher wrote a beautiful book on compassion, which I loved. A Zen teacher commenting on the Tibetan Buddhist slogans. It's a beautiful book. And one of the slogans is, drive all blames into one. What does that mean? It sounds like a kind of obscure koan, doesn't it? Well, when it's talking, you know, in Buddhist practice, when you drive all blames into one, it means it's like an arrow pointing into your own heart. It means you take responsibility for everything that is appearing in your consciousness. And I was joking and I said, well, I drive all blames into that one. And I pointed to Jack. And I said, this is one of the great things about being married. You always can blame somebody for what's happening. You always have somebody there. Oh my gosh, they left that on there. Oh, look at that mess in the microwave. Oh my God, you know, it can just go on and on. It's so pleasant to indulge in that. And yet, well, I mean, sometimes I find it very pleasant, but I used to say when I got divorced, one of those horrible things about getting divorced is there was no one left to blame but myself for the various messes around the house or in my life. So, you know, drive all blames into one, taking responsibility for that which is not of love, not of peace, not of kindness in our lives or in our psyches. The more that we can do that, the Buddha said, I'm paraphrasing, but it's a beautiful teaching. The Buddha said, the person who takes responsibility, who understands where, this is completely my language, but who understands where they've messed up, where they've made mistakes, and acknowledges them and takes responsibility for them, is like the moon illumined when the clouds part. You know, it's a very beautiful, clear light of awareness that can shine at that time. And that's also what George and I were talking about. And I think we used to have a very big group. Now we have a smaller group, but still there are 34 of us here on this Zoom. And we're here because we love the spiritual path in some way. We are drawn to it. You are, I am. And this is about coming together and wanting to open our hearts and wanting to learn how to do that and supporting each other in doing that. And it's powerful. 34 people willing to be open, 34 people willing to be vulnerable, to sit in silence together. It's vulnerable to come here and to trust each other and to sit together, just as much as in person. I feel that, you know. And when you do that, immediately you're in the Dharma. This is the Dharma. What is the Dharma except love, clarity, joy, interest, curiosity, you know, all of these beautiful qualities of awakening. Um, and I feel like it's a real generosity to show up here and practice together. And it's a real service to the world, because the more we can drive all blames into one, the more we can take responsibility for our, well, I'll use the swimming in the lane that we're swimming in, right? Actually, it helps other people do the same thing. I had an experience this week where somebody was very mean and unkind to me because they were anxious and suffering, but they took it out on me, not Jack, don't worry, not my family, don't worry, somebody else. And it was a work person, work associate. And it felt terrible. I actually cried. I was so unused to, I mean, fortunately, unused to being treated that way. And it just felt terrible. And every part of me wanted to sort of lash out and say, why are you being so mean? You don't have to be so mean. You could say it. What is it? They say in Al-Anon. I don't know if they say it in AA also. Mean what you say, but don't say it mean. That slogan, right? I like that slogan. But I didn't say any of that. I thought, if I'm silent, maybe he'll see what he said or did. Well, he didn't, actually. I was sure he would reflect and apologize. No, that didn't happen. But I was kind when I saw them the next time. And they couldn't really apologize. Well, I already said he, so you know it's a he. He couldn't really apologize, but he was able to say, I was very, very anxious, which I took to be an acknowledgement, you know, of what had happened and of his part in it, and that was enough. That was really okay with me in that moment. And you know, this was just a big teaching week last night, and I don't know if any of you came to the wonderful evening with Venerable Dhammananda, the Thai Buddhist nun. Were any of you there? Do you hear about these things? I don't know. I don't know if Inside LA is getting the word out. Did you hear about it? No. Do you get newsletters from Inside LA? Have you signed up? Well, here's the real, do you ever read them? Do you ever open them and look at them? I was sorry because we usually have a big group for her and it was a small group, and she's amazing. You know, she's total pioneer. Yeah, I saw a hand up, but I think Ashley later. Okay. It was a mistake. Okay. She's a total pioneer. She was the first Thai Buddhist nun to be fully ordained, and she really fought for that ordination. She had to go to Sri Lanka and get it. When she came back, she was exposed to so much ridicule and scorn from all the patriarchy monks. And, you know, she's changed the face. She is changing the face of Buddhism in Thailand. There are now, I don't know how many fully ordained nuns there, who of course are able to then train others to become ordained. And, you know, the old guard might not like it, but it's happening. And she is so pure-hearted, and there's not a trace of resentment, or she doesn't carry anything but compassion for having gone through what was really a terrible time. And then I was reflecting on how I cried when one person got mad at me. And I thought, you know, of course, it's harder when it's personal, when it's people you know, than if it's somebody, writing articles about you in the newspaper. I do think it's more difficult when it's people we know. Um, but Faye, yeah, there should be a recording, and um, when I get it, I can send the link to all of you for sure. Anyway, so she was talking very beautiful, speaking beautiful Dharma teachings. And then I thought, I just want to bring this back down to earth because this is an issue I'm having this week, and maybe other people are having it or may have it over Thanksgiving. And I said, if somebody I knew very well for a long time had been very mean, and I just wasn't sure how to handle it because I knew that anyway, little bit of a story. And it was great because she talked about that time in her life, and she talked about the resistance that is very much alive and well, not just in Thailand, in some other Buddhist South Asian countries as well. The opposition to women being fully ordained, even though the Buddha said it was he ordained women to join the community. So, there's really no, what would you call it? No historical or traditional grounds for this. It's just pure patriarchy mixed with misogyny and so forth. But she talked about the compassion that she had for people, for how hard it is to change, how hard it is to make room for others when you've sort of had it all to yourself for a long time. But she just talked about it in such a compassionate way. And her answer to me was essentially, be more compassionate, which I took to heart. I really did. And I share this with you just because in the end, it felt better to me. It wasn't the release that you get from the comeback or the put down or the somehow coming back to somebody with an energy that is not of kindness, but it might be disguised as something okay to say, but it isn't really, it in your heart. I wouldn't be overtly mean, but I know how to, I would be able to maybe do a little subtle thing or something. That is that perverse pleasure that we get, from anger, whether it's a little subtle, refined anger that you can do after years of practice, or whether it's just anger. That perverse pleasure that we get in it it's not a real pleasure. It doesn't bring any kind of real happiness or joy. Whereas being compassionate, I wrote after the event that we had, I wrote a really nice text to this person, and he put a heart, he loved it, on the text, and I really felt good. That was a genuinely good feeling. I felt that something had been mended. I felt inspired by the power of compassion in the face of something that had been unpleasant, and the ability to once again realize that grief, anger, rage, despair, sorrow, fear, these are natural to us as human beings, just like love, joy, happiness, compassion, equanimity. Our lives can change on a dime. We know this. Even the luckiest among us can face great suffering. And so these practices connect us by the heart, connect us in love, in compassion, in joy, in equanimity, in clarity, in just a great openness of mind and heart, all of these things. And so there was some other things I want to share with you today. I gave you that meditation instruction that you could drop the question, the inquiry, like, who am I? Or who is it who's distracted? Or who is it who's upset or sleepy, whatever it might be in any given moment? Who is it? And I was reminded of this inquiry that my first teacher, and I've shared this with some of you, for a long time, he used to give us the meditation instruction to ask, what am I? And to just drop that question, what am I? Because it doesn't have an answer. I liked what better than who, because who kind of drew me into my image of myself or who I'm meant to be or want to be or think, but what am I? What am I? A bunch of electrons and molecules and atoms and cells, and what am I is a deeper kind of more mysterious question. And this is a question that you can actually drop into your sitting whenever you encounter old patterns that might seem to be very stuck. Or Lisa Ernst is writing the blog for the newsletter this week, and she sent it to me to look at, and I really liked it. And she said, patterns that seem impervious to your mindful awareness. We all know there are those, right? And she says this is especially true during the holidays when you may be immersed in family dynamics that reignite old patterns that you thought were long gone. And at a time like that, when something comes up that's very difficult for you, and what came up with my colleague this week was exceptionally difficult for me, because they happen to have some of the same difficulties my brother has, who would get very mean when he was in the grip. He adored me, but he would get very mean when he was in the grip of his mental difficulties. So when you get into a situation that ignites your old patterns, it's much harder to be wise and to be heartful and to be love, peace, kindness, all the things we want to be. So she's suggesting, remember this inquiry, because it's another way of beginning to loosen the tangle of whatever it is, or of, just like in meditation, it can help loosen the tangle of distraction. And of course, there are so many other methods, just coming back to the subject of meditation, like the breath, or taking that backward step, moving the body back an inch or so to just remind ourselves we're receiving this moment. We're not trying to lean forward and anticipate the next one, make something happen. No, we can relax and just sit back and receive what's happening. So this inquiry practice is just another tool that can sort of momentarily, at least, cut through the reactive pattern and its stories and emotions and everything. And it buys you a little bit of time. It buys you that pause between whatever the stimulus was and the reactivity. And in that little pause, there's time to take a breath. And we make that distinction between reaction and response, to take a deep breath and just respond with probably a little bit wiser, kinder response than the reactivity that is just the habit pattern. And she says, when I engage in this inquiry practice, I often feel lighter and less stuck. At other times, a deep sadness may arise from witnessing how a pattern has perpetuated itself for so long in my life. But she says, once that entanglement is seen, there's space to respond, just as I was saying, from a wiser, more compassionate part of myself. I find freedom to act in accordance with my truest values, with kindness and insight. And that's really where I started, that when we come here and sit together, we're aligning ourselves with our truest values. You are and I am. It's like what matters most in our hearts. And to support each other in remembering. So much of mindfulness is just remembering. And the Sanskrit word for mindfulness, smriti, actually means to remember. So this is what I want to share with you this morning, but I'm going to close with just the end of a poem that was written during the pandemic by the poet Lynn Ungar. And the poem that she wrote is called Pandemic. And this is the last part of it. She says, in the last part of her poem, she says, do not reach out your hands, reach out your heart. Reach out your words, reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly. where we cannot touch. Promise the world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness or in health, so long as we all shall live. Isn't that a beautiful practice, Val? So as we go into this holiday week, we can share this aspiration, each one of us. And now is really your chance to speak or share or ask any questions you might have. I don't know if you meant to, if you have anything you wanted to say, Ashley, or if it was a total error to raise your hand, but feel free if you want to.
I was saying just a second, I would have taken a lot of notes, so I'm going to generate my question. But I didn't mean to raise my hand before.
Okay.
I have a question.
Please go.
Um,
You say Yesenia? Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yesenia.
Yesenia, yeah, good.
Yes. When it comes to the idea of like, what am I or who am I? Are you saying we should look at it in terms of what am I?
Well, whichever works for you to help you. The question is meant to help you kind of dive down beneath the quick answers. I'm a sister, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, or, I'm a social worker, I'm a journalist, I'm an influencer, whatever you might be. It's designed to kind of go deeper than even I'm a woman, I'm a human being, and to just go into that place where it's kind of mysterious what we are, how we arrive in this life, how we grow and, get bigger and lose teeth and grow new teeth. And I mean, all the things, right? It's sort of mysterious how all this happens. And science describes it beautifully, but nobody, Yesenia, yet has really sort of cracked the code or solved the mystery of consciousness and what it is. So whichever question, what am I or who am I, helps you kind of open your mind, your heart to exploring, not cognitively, not by thinking through what you've learned about, I don't know, anything. It's really about just, can you stay in that sort of openness of mind without knowing for a while? And it's great practice because it also teaches you to begin to tolerate uncertainty and the unknown. Like, we're conditioned our whole lives in school that we're supposed to know the answers. When the teacher calls on you, you're supposed to know the answer. And this is like just turning that on its head and saying, actually, no, don't know the answer. Sit in the openness of not knowing, because that allows you to have the life, the moments that you don't know yet. None of us come to this practice wanting what we already know. We all want to either feel something different, be some different way, learn something new. Do you know what I mean? So that not knowing is a space of openness to learning, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I remember a podcast. I don't know if it was by Gabor Mate or Thomas Hubel, but he was talking about the concept of not knowing, and it's okay to not know.
Yeah, it's okay to not know. And, both of those teachers have, really interesting things to say about trauma, especially Thomas Hubel. I mean, Gabor does too, but he's more synthesizing other people's, whereas Thomas Hubel has done a lot of sort of groundbreaking research. And their humility, the humility we all feel in the face of what is this and how do these things happen and how do we heal and who are we anyway as human
Yeah.
beings? You know what I mean? These are deep, important questions. So it's just an encouragement to engage that way.
Yeah. I like it.
Good. I'm glad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Susan from Berlin raises her hand. Susan, you can unmute yourself. Do you mean to have your hand up, Susan? No, I don't think she did. Okay, Ashley, you can unmute yourself, please.
Okay, I'm sorry for all the confusion. I'm actually setting my phone up on my daughter's bucket of toys. If that tells you anything, that's why my camera has been so crazy.
I
But
didn't even notice, honestly, I didn't notice.
so, anyways, when you ask the question, who am I? That immediately draws me back to ego. So I'm really glad you said what instead of who,
Yeah.
because I feel like when somebody asks me the question, who am I cling too much to that ego as more of than I am another part of this stream of consciousness.
Right.
And like when I say stream of consciousness, it actually, like, I was re-listening to this podcast with Duncan and Lama Soma. She's a Tibetan Lama, and for the millionth time. And I don't know why something was telling me to reread it, or not reread it, re-listen to it. But she was talking about how she had this experience when she was reading this prayer book, and it just was like all of a sudden everything connected. She felt like there were like these weaves, and like she could see everything. It was like very strong visual, and like I felt like I've kind of connected to that. And then she's talking about still how to live from that place and how to retune your radio into it. So my question to you is further guidance on that, how to keep coming back from that place and living from that place in every single moment of every single day. Because it's like we all know that we're combined together. We're not separate.
No,
You
we're
know?
not. We're not.
So,
No, we're not. Well, I'm sorry, I missed the name. What is the Lama?
her name's Lama Soma. Let me get a spelling for you that real quick because I just had it pulled up. I actually shared this with one of your breakout groups, one of the
Yeah,
or
put-
like a week or two ago.
Excuse me. Yeah, put it in the chat, Ashley. That'd be great.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, a lot of it to me, the answer to your question, which isn't so much taught per se in the, you know, in the Tibetan tradition, is mindfulness. And I can substitute, you can substitute, we can substitute the word heartfulness for mindfulness. And what it boils down to is returning to being present in this moment, this very moment of life. Because guess what? It's the only moment we have. We think we have a past, we think we have a future, but this is the only moment that we are alive in that has the richness and sensuousness of living tissue being. So coming back to this moment, some people practice conscious breathing during the day, you know, just returning to the breath, not just in meditation, but just feeling the breath in the body as you go about your day and taking care of your daughter and the other things that you do. Some people, it's more tactile, like just staying connected, grounded, feeling your feet on the floor as you walk or sit, or just staying grounded in the body. There's really countless ways to stay present when you open your senses.
Right. And it's like, I guess more so like, yes, staying present, but like bringing the love and the compassion and everything that I feel from that. The best way to say it's like a stream or a channel that we're all in. And when you feel connected to that and you really feel it, you're there. It's like it's undescribable. You can't say anything. Like you can just give like visionaries of it. But it's like, how do I bring all of the love and like overwhelming joy I feel from that place to other people? How do I channel it back out to them?
Sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. And I think that the expectation that you can live with that particular feeling every moment of your life
You
is a
can't.
no, I think it's a recipe for sort of failure because we can't banish suffering from our lives,
Mhm.
but um you can softly breathe tenderness into the moment. You can softly breathe. You can you might not be in the experience, but you can remember the experience.
Mhm.
And that memory can actually be inspiring because it can help you change your relationship to whatever suffering you're in or whatever is not
Right.
of, it can help you it can help you connect with everyone who's ever felt vulnerable or the longing to be better than they actually can be in that any given moment, or
Yeah.
anybody who cares, and that, as you have discovered in your practice, that's what cuts through that hardcore separateness that leads to so much loneliness and sorrow.
I agree. Thank you, Trudy.
Thank you, Ashley. Nick, do you want to unmute yourself? Excuse me, I have a cough.
Yeah, hi, good morning,
Hi.
and happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Um, so I was reading some stuff by a guy named Peter Russell. He used to be
He's a
a me-
non-dual teacher.
yes, right. And he got talking about what is consciousness. And then he goes, basically, consciousness is nothing. It's because he said by putting the suffix to the word conscious of NESS, we turn it in from a transitive verb and an ongoing experience that we're capable of having into a noun. And it's not a noun. Consciousness is not a noun. It's not a thing. And when I was just reading that, I was just fortunately just like really open. And it's like, it blew up my mind, you might say. It was like, and there was nothing. And I was aware that there was nothing. And it
And
was just,
it's a wonderful state, isn't it?
yeah. And it was just like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, you look really happy.
Yeah, it lasted a little bit. And it's like, but the memory is still there. So like, yes. I mean, so that gets back to what you were saying about what am I? Who knows? Because one of the things I love doing is figuring out, in terms of the quote age of the universe, the average, say, even if the human lifespan was 100 years, what small absolute fragment of 13.8 billion years 100 years is. I mean, it's like nothing. It's like so short, and it's like, however, we have, I know we have an impact. It's just amazing. Because I was actually kind of like all over the place this morning, and it's wonderful when it happens.
Yes, it is.
So,
Yes, it is.
so thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I'm happy to share, and I think everybody's probably happy to share your joy in your practice. And what Peter was saying, it's right, but it's also not but and.
Yes.
So with enlightenment also, people make it into a thing, an object. I want that.
Mm.
As opposed to enlightened moments or enlightened activity of consciousness. I mean, it's just hard. It's like what Ashley was saying. It's hard to put it into words because words reify, they make solid things that are very fluid and often ephemeral. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, good. Susan from Berlin is back. Can you unmute
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah. Hi,
Okay.
Trudy.
Hi.
I'm hoping you can hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. I can hear you as if
Okay.
you were next door.
Yeah, it's working better now, my internet.
Good.
Yeah, when you were talking about like that friend of yours where you felt so like, oh, why does he have to be so mean? I was just like, it really resonated with me because I was feeling that way about my sister. And also noticing that there's always this same pattern coming up again and again with her, and where she reacts in a way where also it hurts me just so deeply, like it's just so painful. And in my mind, I have the same thoughts, like, why does she have to be so mean? And it actually has, it's like me trying to set a boundary or me saying something and something kind actually, and it's completely misinterpreted. So I really don't know like how to be compassionate and protect myself at the same time. I feel very confused.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
confusing. It's
very
confusing.
confusing. Mhm.
It's confusing because I mean, I'm assuming that you love your sister, but that it's difficult.
Yeah, it's like I love her, but I don't like her very much.
Okay.
The way she behaves. I mean, the way she behaves towards me. It's like,
Okay. Well, yeah, that's if it's more ongoing, that kind of behavior, that's difficult. I mean, really, I feel like you're setting some boundaries, some limits is is so important. And I actually um I kind of I really respect you're doing that. I really respect anybody actually who does that because the your sister doesn't have good boundaries. You know what I mean? She doesn't realize that when she says certain things, it's really entering your territory in a critical way that it's boundaryless to do that. It just is. I have so much respect really for anybody who uh, has the courage really to set a limit, to set a boundary, to respect yourself enough to do that. And sometimes it's necessary to just say, I can't receive this. And you don't have to say you can't bully me like this, or you could just say I can't receive this. It reminds me of a story about the Buddha where somebody spat on him, somebody who really obviously disagreed with what he was doing and spat on him. And he said something, I'm paraphrasing, but it's all paraphrasing because nobody has a video or audio of what the Buddha actually said, but I'm not sure how the ancient text put it, but what I remember of what he said is that he said, when somebody gives you a gift, if you don't receive it, it stays with them. And so if you don't take it in and react to your sister saying something mean or, being critical or whatever it is, then it stays with her. And if you don't react, which is hard to do with sisters, I've got one. If you don't react, then, I mean, I love my sister, but yeah, sure, we're sisters. Things come up. If you don't react, then actually it stays with her. The discomfort that she's trying to offload in some way by being mean to you, it stays with her. And she gets a choice. She gets to choose whether she wants to take responsibility for it and work with it in whatever way she needs to do, or get help, or the various things that we can do. Talk to a friend. The thing is that then she has to look at herself, because you're not providing the reactivity that would enmesh you, in the argument, or the fight or whatever it is. And because we always have this choice any moment of the day to choose whether to be loving or not. And often we're going against our conditioned patterns of how we were raised and the families we lived in, and the life experiences that we've had may have been, especially if you're from a targeted community of any kind, it made me make it hard to choose to respond with love. And it takes courage to be quiet and not receive a gift, quote unquote, like that. But there's a quote from Rilke that I love. It says, anyone who sounds the depths of their own being discovers the benevolent heart of compassion, a heart of loving awareness blooming right in the center of this suffering world. I think I put in loving awareness, but you get the picture. And I think, when you don't react, when any of us don't react, it's an invitation for that person to go deeper into their own being and say, okay, what's here? And depending on who they are and how sort of thick the layers of unexplored conditioning are, they will either respond more compassionately or not. But you've protected your own heart, and in a way that doesn't draw you into not being aligned with your true values and your own lovingness. And I do feel that it didn't happen immediately or anything, and it was lucky in a way that the experience I was having this past week was a lot on text and email. It wasn't like person to person, which might have made it harder for me not to react. Not to react. A phone call is harder, and in person can be harder or easier, depending if you can just take a deep breath. And I don't know if this is useful to you, but let me know. You can say.
Well, yeah, thank you. It is useful. And up till now, we just haven't had contact. The last thing I wrote was, I'm noticing we're in old patterns again. I think we should talk with a mediator. I think that would be really helpful. Would you be willing to talk to a mediator? I thought that was wise to say, because it's an old pattern, a pattern that comes or seems to be over the years, constantly kind of there again and again. So I thought that was wise, and I haven't heard back. So
I think that does sound wise. You're basically saying, we've been doing this dance for so many years that it's hard to do something different, and maybe having a third person bear witness to it will help us get some space or distance on what's happening and work with it in a different way. Well, I wish you luck. I hope she will respond in a positive way, because if she doesn't, she's basically saying, I'm going to drive all blames into you.
Yeah, that's why I haven't heard back, so I'm not sure if I should take another step or not. I don't know.
No, I think the silence really is important, to let people sit with something. Everybody's different. We're wired differently in terms of how long it takes to process things, or, some people really need time. Some people know instantly how they feel. It's different and especially this is an important relationship and a painful one, it sounds like. So give it some time.
Okay, yeah, I will. And I've learned a lot of things from it too. So it's on one side it's been painful, but on the other side I'm learning things too. So
Good.
yeah. And I'm also learning that setting boundaries is important, and not going into reactivity is important, and also finding other people that are maybe able to be more warm and loving with me. And that can be, and that can be a bit painful, because I think we always want our family to be that loving, warm support. So
yeah, we do. And that's why I mentioned chosen families at the beginning too, because there are times in our lives where the family isn't going to be that or do that. And then we need to surround ourselves with, I like that word, chosen family, that is used these days.
yeah, and I guess here in this Sangha, this is like one of my chosen families.
Exactly. Yes, thank you. Honored to be part of your chosen family.
Thank you. Yeah, thank
So
you so
we
much.
just have a couple minutes. I'm gonna just see who iPhone is. There's a raised hand without a name.
Sorry, it's Gabby. I haven't.
Oh, it's you again.
My,
Okay, it was you last week too.
I know I haven't changed my name, but I want to thank you for the practice today. And you said something today that I'm trying to recall, and I haven't heard teachers say it that way. Something about mindfulness. It means to return home.
Remember,
Is that how you said it?
I think I said um, to remember, Gabby. I think I said that the word, I mean, I don't know what I said, but I mean, I do know this. I don't know what you're referring to. What I know I said is that mindfulness, that the word in Sanskrit is SMRTI. There's not very many vowels in there. And that it means remembering. The root is to remember. Because being, a moment of mindfulness is easy. You just step back and open and be present, right? But remembering to do that is hard because we have all these habit patterns of how, just how we are and how we do stuff and what we think about, and we're not remembering, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I never heard it. I haven't. That to me, I was like remembering to come to your source, to your home.
Yeah. Yeah. You're making it more beautiful than what I said. Thank you.
Because I'm always like trying. I always had this thing about like we could travel over the world anywhere we want, but the least journey we travel is home. And then when you said remembering, I was like, yeah, remembering. Like we almost have forgotten. I think in our human race to we have forgotten how to come home.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I feel like it's something that has always been ingrained in us, but for some reason we have forgotten our ways. To me, that's how I feel. So when you said the word remember, I'm like, yeah, because all along in this life I've been trying to remember how to come home, how to get home, kind of like the Wizard of Oz. I feel like,
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
but thank you for saying that because it really hit me on the spot.
Well, thank you for remembering it.
Mm-hmm.
So now we actually uh, are coming to the end of our time together for today. And I want to encourage you to stay for the breakout groups, which happen in 10 minutes. Don't turn off your Zoom. Ava will put you in a group, and know that you're not being put in a group. Zoom does it automatically. So it's not based on anything actually personal about you. Um, what group you might find yourself in. And I'm going to be teaching the Ram Dass Legacy Retreat, not this Thanksgiving week, but the following week. So there will be some other teachers. I don't know if I have to travel next Sunday. I should have known that before I came here this morning with you, but I will let you know who's when I can get the recording. Was it with Damananda that I offered to send out? Yeah. Then I will let you know. Hopefully, he'll be teaching next week. Oh, it's so interesting. Candace just said Thomas Davis, please. I actually texted Thomas before this asking if he would. So maybe it'll be Thomas if we're lucky. Hold on, let me just see. Maybe he texted me back before we stop for today. Okay, Jocelyn and Thomas are going to check in with each other and see if I think they remember they did it together in August, the end of July and August. So we'll see what happens. In the meantime, let's just sit together for a moment. So at the end of a period of study and practice together, we express our appreciation and gratitude for the teachings and for the practice by sharing the blessing of this practice, by sharing the goodness of whatever you experience in the course of your practice. May we and all beings set aside our arguments and differences and simply enjoy the heart connection with each other. We share the goodness of this practice with all beings without exception. So the last thing I want to say to you before the holiday is not just promise the world your love, but promise yourself your love. You know, all the spiritual traditions, what is it? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? That's a common ground. But how about doing unto yourself, you know, as you would have others do unto you? So I just want to encourage everybody to have some self-compassion during this week. And probably I won't see you next Sunday. I have a feeling we are traveling that day. But I will let you know who'll be here, and it will be 2 Sundays because of the travel day, and then the next Sunday is during the retreat, and then I will see you after that. But as you know, whoever comes and teaches here has something good to offer you, so please stay and support them, okay? You can unmute, say hi, goodbye, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy
Thanks,
Thanksgiving.
Trudy.
Thank you.
Thank you for